I'm Anthony Wright, and I am your co-host on the Living Conversation with my co-hosts.
Adam Dietz.
And Adam, before the break, we were talking about being in harmony, that it's one of the most important things right now, and particularly in this time, and we're recording this in June of 2025, there's a lot of disharmony. And I think one of the things that, at least my intention, and I think maybe yours also, is to assist our viewers, our listeners, to maybe attend to what's going on in the world with an understanding from a basis of harmony. Would you say that's true?
Absolutely. There's so much we can't control, but
As humans, yes.
in this life, in this world. So confucian philosophy is so practical, so simple. What can you control?
Right.
Not only what can you control, but you are actually destined by all of time and space to be here, to be a nexus of harmony. Only you can do it in your life.
Dr. Wu would talk about heaven's destiny.
Heaven's destiny.
And I've never forgotten about that. So continue, please.
Yeah. The Big Bang created all things. The Big Bang created you. The Big Bang created you in this exact unique way. Only you are like that. Only you are this confluence of molecules, senses, energies. Not only that, for all of time has come into you, and all of space has come into you.
Yeah.
So this is humanity. This is why humanity is so important. Confucian philosophy, the number one virtue is humanity. So so this character for humanity is one side a radical that means people, and the other side just two people. So all of our work is just in how we relate to two people. We can say much more about this. Confucius talked about oneness. You can have loyalty and empathy with other people, loyalty to yourself, empathy with others. But the point is, only you are in your time, your space, your unique set of relationships to interact with other people. And when you follow propriety, social rules, social norms, and you attempt to harmonize your relationships, you are doing the work of all of time and space. Only you can do it.
Right. And I guess, I spoke about this a little bit last time, but where I came to Chinese philosophy was through the I Ching, and it was actually through and it's one of the five classics, the classic of changes, and part of how I came to it was through the introduction by Carl Jung in the Gray Book, which is the Wilhelm Baines translation. And a couple of friends said to me, "Oh, you can throw these pennies and ask this thing questions, and it comes out with these answers." And I thought, "Huh, that's interesting." Well, I looked at it, and it had 64 situations. And I thought, well, how is it possible that all of human life can be expressed in 64 situations? Well, it's really more like 238 because you have the 6 lines. But 57 years later, I continue to study it and attend to how it assists me to get further and further and further into this patterning of being, this investigation of things. And I wanted to relate to you guys who are watching and listening about, I was 19 in 1969, and that was right during the peak of Vietnam and Nixon, and I was just fed up with all of the bullpucky that was coming through. I thought I couldn't trust, those of you who are of the baby boomer generation will remember, you can't trust anybody over 30, sort of thing. And so I picked up the I Ching and began to look at that. But also I came across this book with the young symbol in it in a bookstore. It was about I Ching. I couldn't believe it. it was the most profound. And when we were very fortunate in that we went through in the Chinese language classes the Tao Te Ching character by character with Dr. Wu. And it was a shock to me, and not really, but to realize how deeply that book had influenced my life all through the life. And it's about going and return. Nothing has more power than nature, but it doesn't try to press its way on anybody, you know. And here was all of this manipulation going on with Nixon and McNamara and Haldeman and Dean, and you know, not so unlike the present time. And so I found great refuge in that, and it has really served me. And for those of you who would want a copy of I can point you to a copy of the text that I read. It was a translation by Archie Baum, who was a Chinese philosophy scholar out of the University of Arizona. And it's a little bit more Western oriented, but for me as a 19-year-old, it's tremendously useful. Are your students finding that same kind of a breakthrough, or do they? I mean, it's kind of like offering these young people seeds, like you were seeded by your original philosophy professor.
Yeah, both of my professors, Dr. Muller in undergrad and Dr. Wu in graduate school, they actually almost never emphasize politics. Maybe just on a big picture, talk about ecology, talk about just in generalized war, leadership, maybe.
Right.
Because I feel like they were certain that the most important thing we can do is cultivate ourselves. No matter any situation.
It comes back to that.
No matter any situation. Doesn't matter if politics are good or bad. The higher level we cultivate ourselves, cultivate our minds, the deeper understanding we have, the more we can do the work of our own life, the most we can harmoniously benefit everything, everyone around us. It's very easy to get exhausted by news, to get exhausted by different situations, and sometimes it's a conscious effort to make us exhausted.
Yeah.
So I took another class. At that time, it was more of a mandatory class, but you know, I kind of navigated my way through it. And one of the most things that stood out to it was a very political class. Well, one of the things that most stood out to me, I should say, was an article that said everything can be co-opted. If you make some great effort, some energy, you create some advocacy, you create an organization that helps push back, helps create some traction, activism, good, very great, wonderful. But it can be co-opted. It can be manipulated. The one thing that cannot ever be co-opted and manipulated, no matter what, your spirituality.
So you hear people say, well, I'm spiritual but not religious. Can you talk a little bit to that?
Well, Dr. Wu once told an excellent story, I thought. I think he had, maybe it was some grad student or some friend or a journalist was going into Asia and asking people, well, what religion are you?
Oh,
and
I didn't hear this story.
And most people, Confucius doesn't want to talk about mystical things. So most people, religion is very private, very personal. Don't want to talk about. So here comes a Westerner. What religion are you? Oh, I don't want to talk about it. Very quiet, private. I'm just gonna laugh it off.
Right.
So after some time, this interviewer kept pressing, not getting any answers. So finally, he asked someone over multiple times. I know you don't want to talk about it. We're a little embarrassed, a little bit quiet, but please, can you give me some answer? This person answered. Actually, I'm 90% Confucian, and 90% Taoist, and 90% Buddhist.
Right.
10% also keep to themselves. So in philosophy, you always, like Socrates, always re-examine your beliefs. Or in Chinese philosophy, you cultivate yourself is most important. If you devote yourself 100% to a religion, it could take away part of yourself. you could be
Oh.
susceptible to some kind of cold thinking.
Yeah.
And they didn't make the religion exclusive. You can be Confucian and Taoist and Buddhist
Right.
at the same
Right.
time. Confucian aspect, relationships with people, very practical, very simple. Lao Tzu, Taoist, merge with the forces of nature, empty your mind, be like water.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then Buddhist, you have like Zen Buddhism, sudden enlightenment. Have some discussion and have some sudden enlightenment or
Right.
meditation.
But this cultivation is something that goes on all the time. And, you know, sometimes I will find that I have fallen out of the zone. And one of the wisest things, my daughter has Down syndrome, and one of the wisest things she ever said to me was, "Oh, silly me," when she makes an error, you know. So when I go, "Oh," and I get caught up in this, that, and I'm, "Oh, silly me," I forgot to cultivate, to continue to cultivate, and
Give yourself grace.
yeah, and a break. And we need to take a short break. I'm Anthony Wright, and I'm your co-host on The Living Conversation with
Adam Dietz.
and we're going to take a short break and be right back.